Hey, what's going on, residents of Meepletown? Today we're going to be looking at the first game in a series of games that's being developed by Braincrack, and this is called their Euro series. You may be hearing a lot of buzz around Venice, which is a new release for them. We're not going to be talking about Venice today, but we're going to be doing videos for all the games. Florence is another game that's coming out, but we're going to go back to 2019 when they released the first game in their series, Ragusa. And in this game, Ragusa was a Mediterranean port where ships came in and out, but Ragusa was nothing without the builders, and that's what we get to play today. We're going to be the builders, and whoever does the best job building up this city of Ragusa is going to score the most victory points, and they're going to win the game. So let's get Ragusa to the table, and let's check it out. All right, so we have Ragusa set up and we are ready to play. Now we're going to be playing the two-player version of this, which is a little bit different than the higher player counts. We're going to have these black powerhouse buildings that we can put out on the board. I'll talk about that a little bit later as we go through some of the gameplay and how the game works. I'll be playing as the orange player against myself, I guess, the blue player here. And it's really pretty simple and straightforward as to how the game works. So I'm just going to dive in. Now, we did start off with a bonus card each, and so I'll just reveal these. I'm going to be trying to, for in-game scoring with a maximum of 12 points, collect these vases or vases as the ships, as I'm fulfilling orders on the ships. And this player at the moment is going to be trying to increase their grape production, but over the course of the game, there's also more bonus cards that we can get. So the very first thing we're going to do, and this is what we're going to do in all of our turns, we're going to take one of our buildings and we're going to place it out here on the board. Now there's some restrictions to that, and there's two basic parts to this game board. There's this outer part right here, and this is where we're going to be getting our resources to produce. And then we have the city of Ragusa here inside the city walls. And this is where we're going to be doing things like converting grapes into wine or converting olives into olive oil, going to the market and selling things or stuff to these ships that are coming into Ragusa. So the first thing we're going to have to do, though, is we're going to have to increase our wood production, because whenever you're building out here, you have to have at least the wood production. At least one wood, you have to have one wood production for however many buildings are on a particular hex here. So let me explain that real quick why I put this out. So let me just say this. Let's just pretend like I had already placed this here. I would have one wood production. If I were to go and wanted to place on one of these hexes, so this building is touching this hex, and this building is also touching this hex, and then this one as well. But if I were to want to place down here, I wouldn't be able to do that because I'm only producing one wood. And I have to be able to produce one wood for each building that's on a particular hex, right? And it would be the same thing for up here. If I wanted to go here, you see that this building is still on this hex, so I'd have to be producing two wood, so I wouldn't be able to do that. Here it's the same thing, except for I'm going to have to produce stone in order to build down here. So the first move has to be wood, and you can actually use the wood that you're building with this building that you're producing immediately. So we start with nothing. We're going to have goods, we're going to have wood, we're going to have this raw silver, stone, fish, olives, and grapes, but right now we have nothing. So the very first move I'm going to have to do is decide which one of these hexes that I want to place my building on that's going to get me wood production so that I can actually place the building. So I think the first move I'm going to make here in this game is I'm going to do something different with both of these players to make it a little bit more interesting, of course. I'm going to go right here, and what this is going to do is this is first going to give me one wood production. You'll see that everywhere on this player on this board here, you're going to, when you place a building, you're going to have three hexes that are actually touching it, and you're going to set those off, no matter where you're at on the board. So the first thing that will happen for me is I'm going to increase my wood production. So now I produce one wood. And the way that you keep up with that is you'll just use this card, and this will rotate based on your production level. So I'm going to have one wood production. I'm also going to immediately have a stone production. So let's go ahead and put that down there like that. And then finally, I'm also going to have a grape production right off the bat. So the interesting thing is that I've done this. This player over here, I say that I want to do something different, but I wasn't thinking that, hey, you know what? They need to have grape production as well. But they're going to do something, let's do something slightly different. They're actually going to come over here, and they're going to place their building over here so that they can not only get grape and wood production, because remember, they're scoring 2 points at the end of the game for every grape production that they have. They're also going to go ahead and say, you know what? I'm going to get some olives so that I can maybe be producing some olive oil. So they get 1 production for grape, 1 production for olives, and 1, of course, wood production, which they're going to need to be able to build more out here. Now, they're obviously going to have to do something with the stone before they are able to produce in the city. So now that that's taken place, all right, so I'm looking at my board. I'm thinking, let's see here. Let's go ahead and I'm going to get 1 more production before I think about it. I could go ahead and start diving into the city right now. You know what? I am. And I'll tell you why. This game is a lot about when players get to hexes, because you're going to be setting off other players' hexes and different things. So what I'm thinking right now is that I know that this player wants to get wine, wants to get grapes. And if they want to get grapes, they're probably going to be producing a lot of wine. So if I jump down here, because I have 1 stone production, then I could actually go ahead and I'm going to be able to produce with wine every time that when they place their building on here, which you'll see here in a second. So in order to place along the edges of Ragusa, like out here, whenever we're looking, whenever it's got the wood, the places where we need to place wood, if I could talk, and the places we produce stone, I've got to have each. So I'm going to place here, I do have 1 wood production, like I mentioned before. I also have 1 stone production, which we have. So I'm allowed to place my building right here. And so what I will do is I will get a olive production. So let's go ahead and do the simple olive production there. Also, I'm going to get to now produce wine. And so it's really simple. I just look at all the buildings I have on this hex, which only 1 right now. I multiply it times the number of buildings that I have. Times the number of grapes. I don't know what I just said. The buildings times the number of grapes. And that's how much wine I produce. So right now I only produce 1 barrel of wine, which I'll use this marker over here to represent, to show that I have 1 barrel of wine. And that's going to be it. Now I do get to place an architect. Now what these are going to do at the end of the game, I'm actually going to score victory points. We're going to score victory points for our longest kind of stretch of walls and buildings that are not broken up by another player. And so what these cool little architect buildings do is these help. So for example, if a player had already built here, this is going to be over top of it and it's going to continue my wall. So if blue had already placed somewhere and it was in my general area, I probably would place this over top of theirs. But at the moment, I'm not going to do that because they haven't done that. So I'm just going to place this up here to kind of guarantee I can start heading in this direction and keep my wall, hopefully keep my wall intact and score a lot of points at the end of the game. So that's my 3 moves that I have. Now this player wants to come down and do some stuff into the city and they can't. And so they're looking up here and they're thinking, you know what? It's not going to help with their wood production at the moment, but right now they only need 1 wood production because if they're going to go to this spot, there is no other buildings of their color, and it has to be the buildings of their color. I should have mentioned that earlier. But they're also thinking, I want to keep going on that grape production. Let's go ahead and get a stone. Let's go ahead and get some of this, this like raw silver here. And so they're going to place right there and say, all right, now they've increased to 2 grape production. They're going to get the silver right down there. And then they're also going to get stone. So on the next move, if they want to, they're going to be able to go into the city. All right. So what am I going to do next here? I do have a olive production, so I could even go ahead and jump over to the olive press, seeing that they have an olive production as well. I'm going to do that. I'm going to kind of push them. I'm going to at least position myself to when they go to these hexes down here that I'm going to get something for it. Now, the negative is I'm not getting as much production as this player is. So they're going a little slower build, but they may have some more powerful actions as the game moves on. I'm going to look at this spot right here, and I don't look at the other color. I look at my own color, and I have no buildings here. So I need 1 stone and I need 1 wood. And so I place that there and I can do that. I also need to be able to produce olives to be able to place the building here, which I have already done. So let's go ahead and let's start with grabbing another grape production. So we may be battling it out a little bit on grape production with these players right here. I'm going to go ahead and get that. I'm also going to do exactly what I did with the grape. And I'm going to look at 1 building times 1 olive production, and I'm going to produce one oil. In the oil press, now I'm going to place a wall. I can place a wall. Now, the negative to going like this is that I've really left myself, not as open, I guess, to build the wall and get it to go all the way across. Who knows if I'll be able to do that or not in this game? I don't know. But I do get a mason action, which means I get to build a wall. What you do with the wall is you get 1 victory point for placing the wall, and then you get a victory point for every color that you have touching. So every item of your own color touching this wall. So when I place the wall down here, I'm actually gonna get, again, 1 for that, 1 for my building, and 1 for this tower. So I get 3 points right off the bat. So kind of jumping out and getting a little bit of points that way. Now, this player over here is thinking they really do want to produce wine. Yeah, for sure. But we're also looking down here because these are really important cards. And you can see here at the bottom that this is when you go to the market, that you're going to be able to go to the market. It's going to cost you whatever this is down here. And then if there's an additional cost like there is on this card, this would cost 2 oil and it would cost 1 silver. They like that card because those stars represent victory points. But right now they haven't produced any oil and they haven't produced any silver either. And so one thing that they're thinking is maybe since I've gotten in on these 2 things, maybe they're thinking that they want to, get in on the silversmith as well. And so they're going to take one more step to help them with production and go ahead and produce a little bit of silver. They're playing a little bit slower. This may not be the best. Who knows? May not be the best move. I think it's good. So they're going to increase once again their olive production. They're going to increase their grape production because they're thinking next turn they may go to the winery or the oil press to do that. But they also get to produce 1 refined silver here, which means they're up 1 on the silver. So they could actually go to the market and go ahead and buy this one next turn if they so choose to do that. Now, if you remember, I'm trying to catch as many of these vases as possible. So I kind of want to produce oil so that wine. But it costs more when they're down here. So I could be just a little press my luck. They have no idea what this is. So I could be like, you know what? I'm just going to wait and see if it shifts down. Or I could go ahead and put it on the winery and thinking that, man, this player's got to start producing wine. Maybe I go ahead and go over here and increase my wine production to kind of have a leg up on them. Or I could come down here to the market. If I come down to the market now, I could have a building there to where I'm going to be setting off the other player when they place on this market. They're going to set off my buildings. Again, you're going to see that here in a second. That's interesting because I could go ahead. I've got an oil here. I also have a wine if I want to, and I could buy one of these cards. This one's not bad because it actually has 3 victory points on that. So what do I want to do? Do I want to keep building my wine engine knowing that they're going to go? No, I'm not, because I'm thinking that I'm going to say they're going to probably go here next is what I'm thinking. I can produce 2 wine and I can maybe get something else. I'm going to go ahead and jump all the way down here to the market. And when I jump to the market, I'm going to place right here. And so what that's going to do is that's going to set off several things. One is, here's the cathedral. Now, this is one of the areas, if you can see here on the board, there's these green arrows that go in circle, meaning most of these spots, and you'll see it the way it's going to work in a minute, are going to set off all the buildings around the spot. In the cathedral and Rector's Palace, that does not happen. The cathedral is going to be all about in-game scoring. So at the end of the game, for every building that I have placed around the cathedral, I'm going to get to score the value if I have an entire set of goods, right? So if I had another silver and I had it at the end of the game, right now if the game ended, I would score 2, 4, 6 points, but I only do that if I haven't spent those goods. So that's the challenge with the cathedral, is thinking through, is it worth it to do that? We'll see. I think it's a good spot to go ahead and prep myself for hopefully some in-game scoring there. I'll go ahead now and go to the oil press. Now, though, I have 1 times 2 buildings. And, oh, wait, you know what? I cannot do that. Oh, my goodness. Goodness gracious. I'm doing some stupid stuff here. I have to produce more stone to be able to do that. Okay, let's just do some more production then. Let's go do some more production. So I've got to go to a place that I can't go over here, or I can't go over here because I only produce 1 wood. So I can't go to those hexes over there. I could come over here and produce even more stone. That's what I want to do. I want to be able to kind of jump to another one of these. And so I'm thinking, do I want to produce some oil and increase that production, or do I want to jump over here? And I can't jump over here because I don't have any wood. So this is a pretty simple decision. All right. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to go over here and produce another wood. Now I could go over here. I'm also going to produce another olive. And I'm also going to produce another stone. Now, what's interesting about this is that, as you've seen here in the gameplay, I didn't change the grapes whenever I produce it, because these goods, I've got this in the wrong spot. These goods, so that's the fish production. These goods over here, you don't spend. These are just how much your buildings are producing. Now, you can spend fish, but we'll get to that here in a second. So these aren't going to change. These are the things that we're going to actually be spending as we're playing through the course of the game. So I'm cool with that. Now I've got some more production going on. Now she is looking over here going, all right, she's got to come into the city and she's got to start doing some stuff. And let's see, does she want to do that? Maybe she does. She wants to do some wine because she's got 3 production of wine. But she could also come down here and produce 2 olives and get a head start in the market. That's what she's going to do. She's going to go to the same spot that I was about to go into, because there are no other buildings in any of these hexes for her, and she does produce 1 stone. And so she's going to have that in-game cathedral bonus like I talked about here a second ago. She's going to look at her wine, and you're going to get to see the way the buildings work, the kind of engine that you're able to build in this game. And she's going to see that she produces 2 olives, so 2 times 1, so she now gets 2 oils. And now that she's done that, again, that's in-game scoring, she can come to market. So now she's looking at this market. She has 2 oil and she has 1 silver. So she can buy this. She could jump up here, and this is exactly what she's going to do. It's a little costly because she has to pay 2 oil because it's up here, but these cards often don't last a long time because it's worth 5 victory points. So what she's going to do is she's going to spend everything she has. That's 2 oil down here and 1 silver. Now what happens when she picks this card up is now oil is actually worth a little bit less potentially. Now, you see that it was worth 2 victory points. It's still worth 2. So it's going to have to bump down a couple in order for that to go up. But now she grabs this card and scores 5 big victory points for having this card. Now that she has that, what we're going to do is shift all the cards down, which I'm actually happy. Again, she has no idea that I want these vases here. But then we're going to actually increase the next production. So we can see by the stack what's going to become more valuable. And so that's going to bump up 2. It's still worth 2 victory points whenever you sell it, but we're 1 step away from now silver being worth 3. We're going to flip this over and boom, there's another big one right there, 5 victory points. But this is costly with 2 wine and 1 silver. But she's positioned herself to where, earlier I was like, man, I would like to go to market. Now that when I go to market, it's going to set off her. So now we'll talk about that. Now that she did that, and I apologize that I should have done the oil press on me before I did the market there. Because you're supposed to, as you place this, I just got a little bit excited. She was just getting a little excited about being able to get that 5. You're going to go around this hex here, and you're going to see that there's another player, and you go clockwise. And so I actually get to produce oil, and so I get 2 times 1 building. So now she kind of helped me out. So that's why I went ahead and went to the oil press, because I was thinking, let's get as much, get there first so that every time she goes there, now I'm actually getting production. So now that I have, and I'll do a couple more rounds of this, and then I'll kind of talk about the way the in-game scoring works and give you my thoughts on the game. Now that she's done that, I could go over here to the market. And I like, the market's really important. And so that's kind of what I'm thinking right now, is that I wouldn't mind going ahead and getting a building there so that every time she goes there, now I can get some of these. Also, the wharf is interesting because at the wharf, I can sell the goods. You may say, well, what does it matter about the price of goods up here? It matters because you can sell a good for every building that you have around the wharf. So maybe it wouldn't be bad to go ahead and jump to the wharf, and when she goes to the wharf at some point in time, it's going to set my building off as well. It also wouldn't be bad. I'm going to do this. And now again, I can do this only because I have 2 stone now, because now there's 2 buildings on this hex. I'm also going to get a bonus in-game scoring card. So like I want vases. Now I'll go ahead and I get to draw 2. Okay. And so I can either get 2 points for every wood production. So right now this would be worth 4 points at the end of the game. Or I could maybe press my luck a little bit and go for these linens or the cloth. And I don't have any of those. None of those are showing up out here though. So do I want to get something that's a little more sure? I don't. I'm going to push my luck and just hope that I can, get some of these. Go big or go home, right? So my game is now shifting to, I'm going to want to build a lot of these, which does mean I need to get a spot in the market. Of course, she has no idea that this is what my in-game scoring is going. So my very next move is going to absolutely be to go to the market. So that's how the Rector's Palace works. Now, this one doesn't set off the other buildings. These two spots don't. So even if I had another building here, I don't get to do it twice. I do get to do the winery, and now my wine production is getting pretty nice. I get to produce 2 wine. I've got 2 wine production plus 2 buildings, 4. And what I like about that, so I bump all the way up to 5, is I know she's got to go to the winery with that wine production. So I'm going to be able to produce a ton. So putting that right there, I think was really good. She did not like that I placed the wine there because she knows that she's going to really help my production. But again, she's going to get to do some market actions when I go do the market. So that's interesting. Now I get to sell one of my goods if I want to the wharf. And they're all worth 2 at this point. And I also see that wine could go down in value. And I have the most wine. That's what I have most of. So let's go ahead and sell a wine while it's worth 2. Now it could go up as well. While it's worth 2, I'm going to go ahead and sell that and score 2 victory points. So I've done the wine, I did Rector's Palace, and I did the wharf. So she is now going, I hate that I'm going to have to give him wine production, but I've got to get some wine being produced. And now she has a decision. Does she want to go down here so that she can start scoring on the wharf? But she also likes the idea of getting some in-game scoring, but she's going to go ahead and do this for now because she doesn't want me to go to the wharf and not get in on that action either. So at this point, I don't know why I've got both of these cards in the wrong spot there. So at this point, she's going to start producing fish. Now, what's interesting about fish is that what you do with this, they're good for a couple things. One is when you go to the fishmonger spot, for every 2 fish production that you're producing, you score a victory point. Here, though, is the only place where you're actually selling these production goods. And you can sell 2 fish, trade in 2 fish to increase your wood, your olive, or your grape production. You can trade in 3 for a stone production, or 4 for a silver production. So anyway, so she's at least got one of those fish going on right now. So now that she's done that, we'll talk about the winery. She has 1 building times 3. She produces 3 wine. But that does set me off, which means I go again and go 2 times 2, which is 4. So I'm all the way up to 8. And I'll mention at this point, you can't have more than 12. So she might want to go to the winery again. No, I'm at 4 production, so I go max. But you might want, it's very tactical, especially in this 2-player game here. If you see that someone's got a lot of production, maybe it's a good time to go because they're not going to get that full production that they want. And I'm thinking, man, I probably need to spend some of this wine because I don't want to waste wine if she ends up going to the winery a little bit. But she also goes to the wharf, which is going to be helpful for her and helpful for me. She's going to, let's see, everything is at 2 as well, and all she has is wine. So she's going to spend her wine, because remember, she spent all of her goods to grab this boat earlier. So she spends 1 wine to gain 2 victory points. And I'm going to do the exact same thing, because she set off my wharf. I'm going to spend 1 of my wine, because I have a ton of wine to be able to do that. So let's do 1 more round, and I'll talk about in-game scoring, and then I'll give you my thoughts on the game. So before I do the last round, I'll mention these powerhouse. Now, this only happens in a 2-player game. The interesting things about these are placed around the city walls, and you don't have to worry about your production when you place them. So I could place them right here in the winery, though I don't have a 3-stone production. But what it does is it actually sets off every building in my favor. So these are really powerful, and I want to talk about them because at this point I wouldn't want to play when I don't think, because I would want to wait until there's maybe a little bit more going on. There's some other strategy. If the black building is out here, then if someone places on it, it actually counts as their color. So I could place it early to do some of that stuff, but I'm not going to do that. But that's how those things work. And again, that's only in a 2-player game. What I'm thinking right now is I can't let her dominate the market, right? Like, I'm worried. Like, she didn't like how I had 2 of these wineries that I was setting off. I don't want her to come down here and, the first time I place this, she's already got 2 buildings and she can buy 2 of these things. So I'm going to go to market over here, and I do have 2 stone. So I could come up here and produce a bunch of oil, or I could come here and start going towards a cathedral, but I don't want to do that because I don't have any fish. And I can't do that because I don't have any fish anyways, never mind. So yeah, I'm going to go right here. It's not that difficult of a decision, I don't think, for me. I'm going to go ahead and get 1 fish production now. So there we go. I'm also going to get a market action, and now she is as well. And so what do I want to do? I think I'm going to do this. I hate to spend 2. Yeah, but I really need these vases. So I'm going to spend 2 oil to grab this card, which will get me 2 victory points. It also will make oil become less valuable a little bit, so it goes down there. Still worth 2, but we're 1 step away from it only being worth 1. However, as these shift down, the oil is now going to go back up. So it was a wash, actually. Okay. I also did that knowing that because she doesn't have any silver at the moment, nor does she have any oil, I know she can't get another 5-pointer. So that's good for me. But again, we're going to go around. And so the next player is blue player, and they're going to get an action right here. And they are going to, they're limited because all she has is 2 barrels of wine. So she really only has 2 choices. And at this point, she's going to take the cheaper choice, which is pay 1. This is worth 2 victory points for her. So now we're tied. So this is a tight game at the moment. These are all going to shift down. I need to decrease the wine production. So now wine's only worth 1, and I've got a bunch of it. So I'd like to see it go up a lot. But we haven't been drawing those, so that is what it is. This actually increases oil too. So oil's about to be worth 3, which it would be good to have some oil if it gets up to being worth 3 victory points. I do see this, and I am really liking that because that would give me a cloth. It would also give, I have the wine. I got plenty of wine I'm producing. I also have the oil, so who knows what I would do next turn. But she also sets the oil press off. So now she gets 2 times 1. She gets 2 oils. But she also sets me off here. So I've got 2 times 2, so I get 4. So going to those positions early in the game, I think that was pretty powerful. But again, that's why she had gone to the silversmith early in the game, because she wants to be able to do that. Now, let's talk about the way the in-game scoring is before I talk about the art and components and the gameplay and all that kind of stuff. So with the in-game scoring, you're going to actually score. You'll have your points that you've gotten throughout the game for these buildings and for going to the wharf and selling things like that. But you're also going to score then your cards that you have. Like, for example, I would have 2 points for this card, and I'd have no points for this at this given time. I'd have 3 if I was able to get that. You're also going to score for your longest stretch of walls that's not broken up by another player. So I'll quickly explain this. At this point, if the game ended like this, I would get 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Even though there's a gap here, I still get 5 points because it's not broken up by another player. If she, on the other hand, had a building there, I would only get 1, 2, 3, 4 points for the wall, which is why these are important, because I could push the architect over that and keep my stretch of walls going. You'll also score the cathedral, like I mentioned before. So she has a building here. She would actually score none at the game at the moment, because she doesn't have a silver, and you have to have a set, as I mentioned, all 3. But if she had that 1 silver, it would be worth 5 victory points for her. So that's kind of the way that the scoring works. It's pretty simple and pretty straightforward. So let's go ahead and let's talk about the art and components. All right, so let's talk about the art and components of Ragusa. First, I'm going to say I really love the box art here. I love the box art of this entire series. It's just super attractive. I think it's beautiful. I also like the way that the board looks. I think it's really nice. This board is now double-sided, which is cool, because these outline, this is kind of like the beginner's board to kind of help you understand where you can place things. The other side, you have the rectangles and these kind of like cross things right here, but it's faded out a little bit more to where you can kind of see the beauty of the board. So I like that. I like the wood components that they have, the little walls they have, the towers they've got here. I really like these see-through things they have like in viticulture. I think those are really, really nice. This is cool the way they keep track of the resources. I like that pretty well. The only negative I have is these don't fit quite in all the way. Like, this is working good because I can slide it, the table that I'm on. But if you have a table that doesn't allow you to kind of slide underneath it, sometimes they don't fit in exactly, but it's not too bad. I mean, like right there, you can see like where I'm at, it's not quite fitting in all the way. It's just a minor little thing. Besides that, I mean, linen cards, I think they did a phenomenal job. This is exactly what I want in the game, right? Have a good price, have quality wooden components, nice cards. I really like that. So I have no complaints. I mean, I have only one minor complaint, but besides that, I think the art is beautiful. I really, really like this style. So let's go ahead and let's talk about gameplay. All right, so let's talk about gameplay. So the first thing I want to point out is that this is This is a pretty simple game to understand, except for the fact when it comes to the way that the buildings are placed. I'll say this, like when I teach new people, it usually takes folks just a minute to wrap their mind around. Like when you place this down, it's touching 3 hexes, and you have to make sure that you have that much production. In fact, I almost messed it up in the gameplay, even though I play this game a lot. But that's rare. It's because I'm on the, doing this video. But I have done a move and started doing things and went, oh shoot, I don't have enough of that. But that's no big deal. That's part of the game. But I will say, like for beginners, besides that, it's pretty simple and straightforward. Is the point I'm trying to make. Like it is a game that I have taught folks that don't play a whole lot of games, but that aspect of check the buildings for all 3 hexes where the buildings go on, and make sure you have enough wood, or down here, make sure you have enough stone. I retaught this to my wife who had played it months ago with me, and she was like kind of scratching. I go, what do you mean by that? Maybe I was just doing a poor job of explaining it, but that's a little hurdle to get over when it comes to teaching folks who haven't played a lot of games, and even folks that have. My wife's played a lot of games. It took her a minute to wrap her mind around it, but after you do, it's everything else is really pretty simple and straightforward. Like, all right, we have 2 buildings here and we produce 2 silver, so now I get 4 of these silver or whatever. So I think that's one thing I like about the game, because I think that I can play this, and I have, with a pretty wide breadth of people. Now, I'm going to say my probably favorite part about the game is that it's just so strategic and tactical about when you're going to place the buildings. That's what this game is all about, is do I want to go ahead and get more wine production, and so that because when I place there, when she goes there, as you saw in the gameplay, I'm going to get to produce more wine. Or do I want to come down to the market and make sure that I'm getting multiple market actions? If she had a building here and I go to the market, not only do I get 2, but now she gets 2 actions because she's already gone down to the market. So that's really the crux of this game, and I find it really interesting, actually. I find it really interesting to think through, maybe I want to get some more bonus cards, but I also want to, if I go here, then I can produce some more architects to build a longer wall and have more walls in-game scoring. Maybe I want to go to the mason so that I can build a lot of walls and score those immediate points as I'm putting them in between the buildings and the towers that I have. I think it's really interesting. There's a simplicity to it, though, that I really like. You're going to be scoring your victory points. It's not complicated. Like at the wharf, I'm selling a good or goods, depending on how many buildings I have, for the value there. The value shifts based on what's being bought here. So it's pretty simple and straightforward. I can see that, okay, oil is going to go up, but if I, you spend this card, it's also going to go down 1. Okay, that makes sense. It feels really streamlined for me. This game feels really streamlined. Down here, it's super simple, right? Like, okay, this is going to cost me 2 silver to buy this. This one's going to cost me 1 oil. But then one wine. But you can have those like decisions that are kind of tough, because you're like, wow, but if I take this with wine, like for example, I'm producing a ton of wine. If I take this, then it's going to lower the wine production or wine value even more. And it's going to take 2 boosts up to where now it's worth 2. And I think that's interesting. I think it's interesting that you could, try to score points in the cathedral by having a lot of goods at the end of the game if the values are getting raised up. And so the values are going to be even more important to you, I think, when you're playing the game, if you're building this, kind of cathedral thing. On the other side, the opponent may want to try to lower the values of some of those. But the thing is you're going to lower and you're going to raise. So I don't know. It's just a lot of little, interesting decisions that's not overly complex, and that's what I like about the game. So I'm trying to think of anything else that I really want to make mention. I like the powerhouses in the 2-player version. I think this game plays well at 2. I'll say that. It's I think it plays better at a higher player count, but the powerhouses make it really interesting the way that you play it at 2. Because when you have 3 or 4 players in here, you have a whole lot. The board becomes tighter, and it's a whole lot more interesting when you go to certain spots. Now, you will also have less buildings that you're going to put out over the course of the game in a higher player count. But that's really interesting. But then again, the 2-player has that like really tactical. Like I can really focus in on what they're doing and see, oh well, she has that, so I know she's probably going to go there, so I'm going to go here first. I think that's. I really think that's interesting in the game. Let's go ahead and let's talk about my final thoughts. Overall, I like Ragusa. I really do. I've talked to a lot of people about this game, and I've had mixed results. Like there are people that love Ragusa, and there are people that went, it just didn't do enough for me. I wanted there to be more. I really like how I love finding games that aren't too complex to teach, but give me really interesting decisions. And I feel like I have that in this game. This is one that, will stay in my collection because of just that. I can bring this out with people, and I have those really interesting tactical decisions of when to go to the architect, or should I go to the oil press? Should I go to the market right now? And I love engine building games, and you're building an engine with this game. You're building production engine. You're building an engine for how many market cards you're going to be able to get. And it can be kind of like, it can be a little bit stressful, like, oh no, I want to do this, but I really want to do this, and I love those pools. It's not a complicated decision, I don't think, most of the time. It's just, I want to do this and I want to do this. What are my opponents going to do? Are they going to go in the wharf direction because they see me going more towards market and they want to build up the wharf and do that? Also, the in-game scoring is super simple. You just collect. It's a set collection thing. It's a production. You're scoring points for how much you're producing or collecting these things. And I like that. So I just love how it's feels like a not overly complex at all engine building game that I can play with a lot of people, that is pretty simple and very streamlined. I think Fabio Lopiano did an amazing job with this game. I think this is a really solid game. Though again, I'll give you the caveat that I know people that we like a lot of the same games, and they said, I just want more to it. And that would be my only critique to this game is I would agree with the statement that for my personal tastes, it would be good. I would love to see an expansion, for this game, have another little board or some tracks that you could potentially go up. I don't know how easy it would be to be able to add, more hexes here or whatnot, but, maybe more to it. Maybe these cards become more interesting. Maybe they give you something in addition to just giving you victory points in the game. That might be like an interesting twist that you could put on there. And if they do come out with an expansion, I would snatch it up in a heartbeat, because I think it could really elevate the game. But this game, like it is right now, I'm going to give this 8 out of 10, which means not only would I usually be willing to play it, which is a 7, I'm going to suggest this game, and I will suggest this game. Now, this is going to be, in certain situations, but there's a lot of situations that I'm going to find myself, I believe, suggesting this game, and it, especially with those players that haven't played heavier games or don't enjoy playing heavier games, or even are newer to the hobby. I think this is such a really good game to teach what engine building is like, and it's just fun. Like I think it's fun the way that you're trying to make decisions of where to go when, and should I beat this player to this thing right here? Should I push my luck with my in-game scoring cards and hope that these come out? But hey, if they don't come out, then maybe I should have gone, as you saw in the gameplay, and did something that I could probably control a little better, and that is my wood production. When do I jump down into here and start doing this versus get more production out here? Those are just fun decisions, and I really, really like it. So I am excited about this series after playing Ragusa and seeing how good it is. Can't wait to play through Venice and play through Florence. But this is a good one. So that's an 8 out of 10 for me. If you're enjoying this channel, we would love for you to subscribe to it. You can go to MeepleTownGames.com to check out all of our stuff. We're at Meepletown Games on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, and we're Board Game Geek Guild 3407. Thanks for coming down to Meepletown.
Thanks for joining us, and be sure to follow us on Twitter at Meepletown Games, and connect with us on the Meepletown Guild, Guild number 3407, at BoardGameGeek.com, and also subscribe to our podcast and YouTube channel. And until next time, thanks for coming down to Meepletown.